There are so many technique possibilities that you can do with sprays, and I am going to share 5 of my favorite ways in this video today. And the best part is, these spray techniques are so simple, you will end up making tons of backgrounds. When I'm working with sprays, I need to make sure that I am working with a really heavy mixed media paper. I really like these distress tags from Ranger. Ranger also has a mixed media paper and it is called Heavystock. And that's definitely my go-to paper when I'm using sprays. The first technique I want to share with you is smooshing. So instead of spraying the color directly onto the paper, I like to spray it onto a non-porous surface. This is a silicone mat from scrapbook.com. The 3 colors I'm using are Prize Ribbon, Speckled Egg, and Salvaged Patina. I am going to spritz my Heavystock with a little bit of water. This is going to help the color move around on the paper. I also spritz a little bit of water onto my mat. Then I am going to smoosh my paper directly onto the color. Then I'm going to quickly pull up that paper, and as you could see, you get an amazing result. This is a great way to use your sprays, especially if you are a little bit intimidated by spraying the color directly onto the paper. I am going to dry this layer because I still want to pick up all of that other color that's on the mat. So drying in between layers is going to allow you to build up layers on your background. So I'm going to take my cardstock and lightly smoosh in little areas. I'm not completely smushing my paper down again because I want to get the color in just certain areas. I don't want it to completely cover it again, because then you are going to be left with splotches just like this. You can see it a little bit better with the Prize Ribbon color. See, there you go. You can see that right there. That's what I want. So I'm going to dry this again. I'm even going to step it up a little bit further and add some water. This is going to get all of that ink reacting again, and it's going to start doing a lot of fun things. I like to dry the water in place. This is going to give me a really cool effect. Some people like to pick up the excess water. I think that it picks up a little bit too much color for my liking. So I am just going to use my heat tool to dry that in place. And there you have it, a really gorgeous background for any type of project that you want to create. For this next technique, let's dust off those embossing folders so we can get the most out of our supplies. I am going to splatter and spray some Distress Mica stains directly on the embossing folder. I use a few different colors so I get a nice variation, and it adds a lot of texture and interest to the background. I am going to spray some water on the embossing folder to get that color moving around. I am also going to spray a generous amount of water onto the watercolor paper. I am going to sandwich the paper into the embossing folder and run it through my Spellbinders machine. I am going to make sure that the paper is dry, and then I'm going to take a cheap nail file to sand off the top layer. This will take off some of those raised areas and expose the paper underneath, and it's going to create so much depth and interest for the background. You can take off as much or as little as you like. I kept going until I liked the look, and this is such a great way to get more use out of the supplies you might already have. I want to quickly talk about the Micro Distress Glaze. This product can be used for various techniques, but what I like to do with it is, after my background is done, I like to take a domed blending tool from scrapbook.com and dab a little bit of the microglaze on the tool, and then I will lightly go over my background with the microglaze. This is going to help all of the colors pop, and it also seals your background so that you can add white splatters, and also if you accidentally spill water on it or something like that, it's not going to ruin your background. The next technique, I am going to actually do a little bit of watercoloring. So if a really grungy mixed media background isn't your thing, you can use a paintbrush, and I just dip it straight in that bottle. And I am using the spray stains, and I'm going to take a little bit of water, spray it on my Heavystock there, and then make sure I move this out of the way so I don't knock it over. I'm just going to add that straight to the paper, just like that. This technique probably works best if you use watercolor paper, but I just so happen to have the Heavystock on my desk, so that's what I'm using. While the top layer is still wet, I'm going to go in with the second color, and they blend beautifully together, as you can see. It's going to continue to go down, and this is just the Heavystock from Ranger. It's not watercolor paper, although you could use watercolor paper. I did add a little bit too much water, and you can kind of see the paper kind of coming up a little bit, but that's okay. We're focusing on the technique here. All right, next I'm going to take speckled egg and just add it. And add a little bit more water so that it moves around. This is a really fun, quick background idea. So you can leave this as is, or I am probably going to add some water because I did get a little splotchiness here. And that's a good tip for you if you do not like your background. If it has a little bit of splotchiness to it, you can add some water. And you can even do that to a ink blended background with oxide inks. So this next technique is a tone on tone technique. I'm just going to use a little bit of the SPRAYS Ribbon Distress Spray Stain. I'm going to splatter in a little bit of black soot. A little black soot goes a long way, so I don't want to add too much. I'm just going to create a quick background, and I like to add a little bit of hickory smoke here. I want the main color, of course, to be the SPRAYS Ribbon. So that is the most color on my mat here. I'm going to spray a little bit of water. Spray a little bit of water here on my cardstock. All right, so we are going to smoosh the ink into the paper first. I'm gonna lift that up. Look at how pretty that is already. So I'm gonna add a little bit of water to get that moving. And this time, while my paper is still wet, I'm going to smush more in here. So I'm going to dry this. All right, so I have my background here. I'm going to take a stencil, add it on top of there. And I'm going to use the oxide spray to do the tone on tone effect. So I'm just going to spray right on top. And then of course you don't want to waste any, so we're going to stamp that onto the background. And then you can see that tone on tone effect, and it's just stepping it up another level because I use the oxide spray instead of the spray stain. This next technique is Emboss Resist, which isn't that exciting on its own, but I'm going to show you how you can easily add so much interest and texture to such a simple technique. I stamp out a butterfly with some Versamark ink, and then I'm going to add some super fine white embossing powder on top. Then I'm going to melt the embossing powder. Once the embossing powder is melted, I'm going to take my two colors, which are speckled egg and antique linen. I'm going to spray them straight on to the cardstock. I add a little bit of water to help the color move around a bit, and then I'm going to dry that. After the colors dry, I am going to take speckled egg and antique linen and splatter until my heart's content. This simple step is going to add so much interest and depth to the card. I wanted a little bit of shimmer on this card, so I am adding the Frosted Juniper Mica stain. And of course, no card is complete without some white splatters. I love finding new ways to get the most out of my supplies, and that's exactly what I do in this video right here, where I show you a simple, mind-blowing embossing folder technique. You are not going to want to miss it.